meeting is being recorded.
Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah McIntyre. And today I'm joined by another special guest. I've got the beautiful Kim Alexis, who has joined us today to talk about her journey, her experiences with spirit, and share her knowledge with us. Welcome, Kim.
Hello, Hannah. Thank you for inviting me to join you today.
Thanks for being a part of it. Excited to have you. If you could just start by introducing yourself to the listeners, what do you do?
So basically, I've got a lot of tools in my toolbox. I am a psychic spiritual medium. I'm a crystal healer. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm a past life regressionist. I run retreats, spiritual wellness retreats in Sardinia. And I am an author.
You have so many things. I went on your website and I was writing down all the things and I was like, God, blimey. So amazing. How did you get into spirituality? Let's start at the beginning for you. How did that start?
It kind of started when I was in my teenage years. I had an interest in the esoteric and I was reading books on Buddhist monks and playing around with astrology and runes and tarot cards, but I never really understood any of it. I was just kind of fooling around with it, and I do a layout with cards and I think, I don't understand any of this. But I was just drawn to those things. And then when I was 17, I went to live in Italy on my own, running away. And I lived in a little village, a very beautiful village, not far from Rome. And there used to be a lady there that read the coffee cups. And so I was always going to her and, she'd make you drink your coffee and then you turn the cup upside down, let it dry for it. And then she'd say, oh, I can see boats and I can see aeroplanes and travel and, and all these things. And I was like, it was amazing for me. So it kind of all started like that, but skipping many, many years on, well, actually not many years on, through my travels, I was working in Morocco with crystals, but at that time I didn't know that they were healing stones. To me, they were just semi-precious stones, and I'd have to sit outside this jewellery shop surrounded by all these crystals and have to entice the tourists in, and I'd make a bit of money. So it was kind of, ironic that many years later I became a crystal healer. And I just learned along the way through my travels, different experiences that I was having. I was reading a book one day. I then switched on the radio and there was the San Francisco earthquake, and I, being like a news flash, this is in the 80s, and I looked through the book that I'd been reading because I thought, no, I just read about that. I just read there was a San Francisco earthquake, but of course I looked through the pages and it wasn't there. I'd already had the premonition before it happened. So things just started excuse me, so things just started to unfold and slowly till eventually I got into spiritual mediumship and all the things that I do now. I'm going to have a swig of my drink.
Do it. So have you had any sort of formal training for your mediumship, or have you just been taught by the spirit world?
I've been taught by the spirit world, really, but when I did come back to the UK many years later, it was actually a neighbour who I was having a conversation about spiritual matters, and she said to me, oh, there's a spiritualist church not far from here. And I was like, what's a spiritualist church? I had no idea. And so I went along, and then I saw there was a medium on the platform giving messages to the audience. And I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And because I knew I could. through all the other experiences that I'd had. And so I sat in a circle in this church, but had a few kind of dodgy experiences there. It wasn't all love and light, I have to admit. But that was, you know, how another part of my journey began. And then, as everybody does who's in London, well, even outside London, you end up going to the College of Psychic Studies in Kensington, doing a few courses there, which was more or less just me sitting there giving readings to people, you know, and which were already there for me. Sounds egotistical, but I could already see and hear and feel and sense, but it was good to go and sit with like-minded people and and do those things. And I actually used to do it with a friend of mine called Lorraine, and we kind of used to take over the class, so it was like the Kim and Lorraine show.
Oops. So, because you also teach, don't you? So how did you
Yes.
find, if you can do it so naturally, did you find it quite a leap when you were then needing to teach students who perhaps didn't have it as naturally available as you, or have you learnt ways for them to be able to just unlock that connection in them?
Yeah, I think how do I put this again? I think I'm a natural teacher because I enjoy it. I'm passionate about it, in the sense that I want other people to know and feel and sense everything that I do. So I'm like an excited kid, you know. I'm like, no, but you can do this, you know. So I'm very passionate about teaching people, and drawing out of them their abilities, and you know, and helping them in whatever way I can, whether that's teaching them with tarot or getting them to sit in front of a person and write things down about how they feel about that person, or whatever the exercises are. Holding objects, you know, so they pick up on the energy of the objects in psychometry. So I just enjoy teaching, and I want people to feel that there is just so much more to this life than they could possibly imagine. I just want to say, the reason my throat is going like this is because I know Spirit wants to speak through me, and this is what happens when I get in front of other mediums and psychics and spiritual people. So it's like, no, you can't. I need my voice box.
Yeah. Oh, well, then if they come out and give us an address halfway through, we'll just keep recording, and then you can listen back to it and find out what they've said. Let it go. That's fine. That's fine. So you do these amazing looking retreats in Sardinia, did you say they are?
Yeah. Because of my love. Sorry.
No, go on. So they look gorgeous. Go for it. Tell us about them.
Because of my love of Italy, and I've spent much of my life living in Italy, and and kind of, in fact, last year I was 2 months in Italy, living out there for a bit. But and I speak the language, and I just love everything about Italy. I love the country, I love the language, I love the people, I love the fashion, so I thought it would be nice to try and do what I do here in teaching, but do it somewhere beautiful by the sea. And I would go to a restaurant regularly where there was this waitress, and she was Italian, and I got talking to her, and she was from Sardinia, and I said, do you know anywhere, you know, that would be a nice place to teach in Sardinia? And she gave me the details of a friend of hers, a little hotel, and I looked it up, and I was like, no, that's not the right place. It doesn't have a pool, and it's not in the right, you know, it was like, no. So I just thought, let me just find somewhere else. And I as I was in my search, I did. And so I jumped on a plane and I flew out there, and I thought, right, I'll do a recce. And I got to Cagliari, which is the capital of Sardinia. I got a taxi, and I said, this is where I need to go. And after about an hour and a half of driving around, the taxi driver said, I'm taking you back to the town, to the capital, to Cagliari. He said, I can't find it. I don't know where it is. And I said, you can't turn around. I have a reservation. I'm going to be staying here. You've got to find it. And so eventually, like, this oasis opened up, you know, in this beautiful rural place with rocks and by the beach, and just stunningly beautiful. And so that's how I got to find this place, and that's where I do my retreats in this.
It does look amazing. How lovely. And are they annual, or do you do them more than once a year?
Annual.
Perfect.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
lovely. Now, tell us about your book, Walking Between Two Worlds. Tell us about, what's that about? Walking between two worlds?
Well, it's called The Adventurous Spirit. Got one here. The Adventurous Spirit.
Yeah.
Walking Between Two Worlds. Yeah. What's it about? It's about, as I mentioned, when I left for Italy when I was 17. So basically, it's a travel book. It's a spiritual teaching book, and it's got a bit of sex and romance thrown in.
Ooh, I say, is it a biographic story?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Amazing. So when did you write that? What inspired you to put it to paper?
About, I don't know, I finished it around 4 years ago, something like that, in Italy. I went to Italy at the last to finish it off, the last sort of few weeks of the book. So it's about when I went to Italy at 17, I met up with another girl, and we hitchhiked across. Well, we took a boat from Italy across to Tunisia, and then we hitchhiked through Tunisia and Algeria and Morocco and Spain and Portugal and France. And so it's about all the adventures along the way and all the spiritual adventures. So that's why it's a spiritual teaching book, because there's past lives in there, there's premonitions in there, there's spirit guides in there, there's fortune telling, you know, reading of the hands, there's the coffee cups, there's the crystals, you know, it's all in the book, but it's also giving a kind of description or an understanding about what these things are and how they work. So and as I said, and then along with all the adventures, and as I said, and a bit of romance thrown in.
Oh, sounds incredible. Amazing. So tell us some of your experiences with the spirit world. Tell us some times that spirit, I mean, obviously that thing with the earthquake's pretty profound, but what else have you had where they've really taken your breath away?
What sticks out in my mind is my own father's passing. I used to stand on the platform at some spiritualist churches quite a few years back now, and then I stopped doing it because it was just too nerve-wracking. I don't want to do it. Why am I putting myself through this? I loved it, and it was kind of a love-hate thing. So and I remember telling my father that I was doing this. My father lived near Portobello Road, and there's a church not far away, a spiritual church not far from there. And he actually said, "Oh, I'll come along and see you." And I was absolutely petrified, thinking, "Oh my God, you know, have my father in the audience." But anyway, so my father was an atheist, but he'd read lots of, you know, he'd read the Quran, he read lots of books, you know, Bibles and all sorts of the different religious teachings, but he was an atheist. Anyway, when my father had a stroke, and it was all very quick. He passed within sort of a week of having the stroke. And that whole week, my arm was in agony because I could feel my father's hand in my hand, hanging on literally for dear life. And the excruciating pain. And it was even more painful when I would do any workshops, because I was then connecting into the higher realms. Mm-hmm. So picking him up even more. Anyway, when he did pass in the hospital, I was with my brother, I was with my stepmother. All of a sudden I heard my father say, "Where am I?" And I was like, "Oh, Dad, you know, you're not in your body anymore." And he's going, "But where am I? What's going on? What's going on?" So I said, "Dad, you know, I just want you to look up to the light. And in the light, you're going to see your dad, and you're going to see your cousins and your friends." And all of a sudden, I was walking out the hospital to my car whilst I was saying all this to him. And I got into my car, and then I all of a sudden he went, oh. It was like he was having recognition of his loved ones, you know.
Oh,
He's going, oh. I was going, yeah, just go up, Dad. And then all of a sudden there was like this breath whoosh out of me, and that was my father's release to the spirit world.
oh, how amazing.
And he always comes through now whenever, you know, anyone does a reading, you know, or I'm in a church, they go, oh, your father's standing next to you. And I go, yeah. You know?
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. So incredible, isn't it? Spirit is so amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't do platform anymore then?
No.
Knock that on the head. But you do one-on-one readings, don't you, where you do mediumship connections and things for people?
Psychic readings, yes, and connecting to spirit, loved ones. I mean, I do
Oh.
that literally every day. It wasn't the plan. The plan was to be a
Well,
hypnotherapist.
never is the plan, is it? I was going to have a ready meal business. So who knows? Yeah, they get you.
They do get you, and kind of dragged me kicking and screaming, actually.
Well, I think sometimes we have to be dragged. It's not for the faint of heart, is it? It's not an easy path.
It's not an easy path at all, and it certainly wasn't an easy path for me at the very, very beginning. I had quite a lot of very distraught experiences, actually, and so it wasn't and not that I don't want to frighten anybody, because it is the blessed life, and it is the best path, and there's nothing greater than doing spirit work and being on the spiritual path and being of service to humanity. I mean, it's the biggest deal that, you know, a human being can have whilst we are on the earth.
Yeah.
But yes, my journey was not always a good one, and but anyway, we won't go into that.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, it definitely does trigger you and bring up all of your shadow stuff to deal with, doesn't it? Whether you want it to or not. I mean, I know when I started, I thought it was going to be escaping me. And then it came back to inextricably stuck with myself and having to face all of that. It is difficult. And there is hardship, and especially for you doing it on your own in a foreign country, regardless of whether it being one you love or not, that is big. That's a big path.
Well, I was running around like a headless chicken, trying to find people to help me out with what was happening, you know, which I did find, you know, because obviously spirit were leading me to those people as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, every experience is a learning lesson. And I do those things for other people now, you know, when they're going through their dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, okay, this is happening for this reason, and you know. We don't have it ourselves, and we don't know.
Yeah, and by the time you're on your sixth one, you're like, oh, this again. Just got to hold fast, wait for it to pass, cry the tears, become a recluse, and then it'll move on, and then I'll get what I wanted at the end of it. So stick in there. Okay, so you work with tarot? Is that traditional tarot you do?
I don't work with tarot, actually. I teach with tarot.
Oh, okay. I thought you'd mentioned tarot.
Yeah, I only use the tarot for them, you know, to help them, you know, with the images and to bring through, you know, the messages. But I don't actually use any tools, because I just I'm clairaudient, so I hear.
Yeah.
And I relay the messages word for word from spirit, and I sense. And my clairvoyance was very strong. But I don't see, I don't, my clairvoyance is not my strongest. It was in the beginning, but that was one of the things that I was like, I don't want to see this. So I kind of, I switched it down, you know, I switched it off, not consciously, subconsciously, whatever. So it's not one of my strengths. So I feel when I get knowings, but spirit speak to me, and I relay the messages word for word for what spirit are telling me.
Amazing. So if you're hearing it, you must be really accurate. God, I wish I could hear it like that, because if you're not hearing the words, obviously interpretation's coming in, isn't it? And things like that. So you must be, you lucky ducky. How lovely.
You don't
So
hear.
hmm?
You don't hear.
No,
What
well,
you
I just know. I don't know where it comes from, really. It's just there. But I always say to my audiences, you know, Spirit don't have a voice box. It'd be great if they did, because they'd be talking to me and I could get around the whole room just going boom, 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 boom. But it doesn't work like that for me. It is just a knowing, really.
yeah.
I just know stuff about them. And sometimes it's things that people would expect to know, and sometimes they have to think a bit harder because it's not in their remit of what they would necessarily expect their loved one to come through with. So it's finding that space in it to work, which is
I sometimes say it's like being in a pantomime where the spirit person is going, oh yes it is, and the person going, no, I don't know that, and the spirit speaker, they do, yes they do, and the client's going, oh, I don't think so, no. It's like, oh yes it is, oh no it's not, yes it is, and until eventually then the client will then go, oh yeah, and they get it.
It's such a funny way to work, isn't it? And so hard to explain to anyone that doesn't do it, because they'd just be like, well, of course you can do this, we've all seen Ghost Whisperer, and I'm like, wish it was like that, but it really isn't for me. So
sometimes it is, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's bang 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 bang, it just flows really easily, and other times it's a little bit harder, but I think that could be because of the energy of the person. They can be a little bit more guarded, and some people are so open that it's just an easy ride to bring through all the messages.
For sure. So what advice would you give to somebody who is looking to start their spiritual development journey? What do you wish that you had known when you started working with spirit?
I think, well, obviously you've got to have a really experienced teacher, mentor.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and this is a little bit controversial, I think that we need to know about grounding and protection and closing chakras and opening chakras and getting ourselves very in our bodies and very grounded when we finish working with spirit. But other people say, well, no, we are spirit and we don't need to do that. But I think it's a very individualistic thing, because I teach people, and what I needed when I was learning was to be very grounded, and was to know about the chakras opening and closing and protection. That was for me personally. As I said, it may not be for everybody. And the reason for that is because if you go out after, when you've been connecting with spirit, and you go out on the tube or on a bus or you can be picking up everybody else's energies. And you don't want to be doing that. You want to be on when you're on and off when you're off. And sometimes in the beginning, spirit are so excited to work with you that it's like they want to be driving the vehicle, they want to be driving the car, but the vehicle's you, and you've got to be in control of your vehicle. You've got to be saying, I'm working now, I'm not working now. So that, yes, it could be lovely that you're receiving messages throughout your day, but if you're at work doing your job, you don't want to be picking up messages, from spirit all day long when you're trying to focus on your job. So I'm very much about learning to be grounded, closed, and protected. As I said, there are some people out there go, oh no, that's rubbish, you don't need that at all. And that's fine, because I never try to put anybody into, can't put a round peg in a square hole. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
And everybody's got to do what works for them.
I would say I agree, but in a slightly different way, which is interesting. So I would say that spirit, because spirit are omnipresent, if you're reaching for them, you will always pick up on them. So it's not that spirit are trying to communicate through you all the time. It's just that if you seek, you will find it. So if you need to shut down to be able to disconnect, then that's what you need to do, because they're always there. So if you go, are you there? They say yes. And then you can't say, well, they're bothering me all the time, because you asked.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's such and I think
Yes.
I say to my students all the time, learn from lots of different teachers for that reason, because we all have different ways of perceiving and receiving the energy and working with the energy. And no one has all the answers, do they? They just have their experience.
Absolutely. Oh,
So,
totally.
yeah. So
I do remember, sorry to interject, I do remember one time at a spiritualist church, I won't name the place, and a teacher was teaching, and the girl stood up to bring through spirit, and she brought through like a mother and father at the same time, and the teacher said, oh no, you can't do that, you can only have one.
yeah.
And I was like, these spirit beings have lovingly come forward, obviously together, and have got messages that they want to share together, and the teachers go, no, you can only have one.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean, as you said, learn from lots of different people, and it's about finding your own formula.
Absolutely.
What works for you, because what works for you doesn't work for the next person. We're all individualistic in how we work.
And you should be as a medium. It's one of my pet hates when you go to see a medium and you can tell who taught them, because they are just following the formula. They even have used the same expressions as their teacher, and you think you've got to find you in your mediumship.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's such a funny
Yeah.
thing. So what advice would you give to somebody that's looking for a medium? How do you find a good medium? How do you know who to trust?
Well, I think, if you're not talking about the online world, if you're in this world, then obviously you're gonna have to talk to people, go to places where there are mediums, and ask about recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
That is the best service. If you've got good recommendation, then that's certainly what keeps my business alive. Someone's had a reading, they've told someone, and it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. I've been doing this for over 20 years. So
Amazing.
it works. But online, obviously, you can read Google reviews and again, what other people have said about the medium. Although I guess there's a lot of fake stuff out there. I suppose that's a bit of a tricky one.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's about recommendation and finding out that you've definitely got people who are satisfied with what they were given by the psychic, by the medium. Because the worst thing is, and I actually say this to my clients, the clients that come in that have never had a reading before, I say, great, I love a virgin. The reason for that is because you will leave here very satisfied, rather than you go to someone and they give you all sorts of rubbish and they plant terrible seeds in the mind of people, and they take that with them for the rest of their life, thinking, oh, I'm never going to have a baby, or I'm never going to get married, or whatever it is that some foolish psychic has told them. And so that kind of annoys me, that there are people out there like that. But having said that, there are good psychics and there are bad psychics. There are good car mechanics and bad car mechanics. There are good dentists and bad dentists. There are good, it's how it rolls. That's how it rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always kind of make a joke of it and say, if somebody comes and they've never had a reading, say, great, love a virgin, because you're going to leave here very happy, and that person's going to be leaving in a satisfied state.
I think you're right. And I think also it's perhaps, like you said, with the seeds, because I've met people that have had very negative seeds, including you're going to die by the time you're 37 and stuff like that, said to them by mediums, which has been incredibly useful. But I also think you have the right not to take on board everything that is said, and people don't talk about that. If you don't like it and it comes up in a reading, it's not set in stone. The reason it's come up in a reading, you can change it. Take ownership of it.
Exactly my words. this is not set in stone. I use those words myself. Take from this what you want. But Hannah, that's easier said than done, because people come along and they can be quite vulnerable.
I know.
And they do take in those kinds of negative, disgusting comments from idiot, fools.
Yeah.
I mean, who in their right mind is going to tell somebody they're going to die? I mean, no. Well, what is the point of that? I've actually only ever had one client in my life that I did know that information, and of course I'm not going to tell her.
No.
You have to be diplomatic as well. That's not, I don't hold back.
Yes.
That's the one time in my life that obviously I did.
Yeah, of course, because you also knew in your knowing that it wasn't something she needed to know. There was a sentence in there. It sounded a bit like Dr. Seuss, but you know what I mean? Yeah.
Crazy.
So why would you tell someone? But I think it's things like that. They're easy to get shock factor from and easy to get a good reaction from, but it doesn't necessarily make them true. And so I would always suggest to people to not limit themselves to one medium. So there's good readings, there's bad readings. I've done bad readings and I've done exceptional readings, because it's always an energetic experiment. You don't know where you're going to be, you don't know what energy the sitter's going to bring, and some people are more compatible with certain energies than others. So
absolutely,
it's not a personal thing, but we just have to be educating people on what they need to look out for. And if someone tells you a death date, dear listener, run a mile.
Absolutely.
Run a mile.
Absolutely. I have got a client that I actually said to her, go and get a second opinion. It wasn't about death or anything, as I say, don't do those things. I said, go and get a second opinion, have a reading with somebody else. I can even I'll recommend you another medium. And she's like, no, I just want you.
Yeah.
So there is that side to it as well, which is lovely, and that's why clients keep coming back. Because they don't want to go to someone else, because they trust me. And at the end of the day, that's what all this work is about. It's about trust. Trust what you get, trust spirit, trust what you feel, trust what you sense. Trust is really the number one word in this business. Love it.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. It's been lovely to hear your story. I will put your website on the show notes so people can click through and connect with you directly. But it's been really, really lovely to hear your story. So thank you for sharing it.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Hannah. Lovely to join you today.